Hello, my mindful meal preppers. This is month 2 of Life's Table. My name is Em. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're not. I can't believe it's already month 2. This is crazy. I'm still having so much fun, and I cannot wait to get into this month's discussion. We will be talking all about stress this month. It is one of my favorite things to talk about because it is such a universal experience, and yet it is so unique to each and every single one of us while we make Stromboli. For those of you who perhaps are new here, just a little overview of what it is that we're doing here. Last month, in an effort to help combat the food insecurity endemic that this nation is facing right now, I created what I'm calling the 3-4-5 challenge. So 3 meals per week, each must serve 4 people at least, and they must cost less than $5 per serving or less than $20 total to prepare. You can see the ingredients that I purchased here. And we are below our $20 limits. And not only that, but we're starting from scratch. Every single month, I am going to hit a reset button to help people who are new to cooking, starting from scratch, empty pantry. Let's build this smartly. Let's build this wisely and in a cost-efficient way. So, without further ado, let's tie back our hair if we have to. Let's put on an apron if we've got one, and let's get cooking good looking. We've got so much to learn today at Life's Table, and I cannot wait to jump in. What we do is first get our cutting boards. We get our cutting boards, we'll get out a knife. I am going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees. Now, if you don't have an oven, Stromboli is one of those beautifully easy things where it can come together on a stove top. You essentially assemble on a tortilla, just assemble your meat, your cheese, your veggies, and then treat it almost like a quesadilla, but folded slightly differently. I guess a burrito. You fold it, roll it up like a burrito, and just toast it on each side. So there is a stovetop modification, but because I have an oven, I'm going to be using an oven. We start with our veggies, and because it's a new month, it means we get to have a new veggie scrap bag. I didn't think that veggie scrap bags would be the most fun part of this experience, but here we are, and every time I get really excited for it. So I hope you're excited too. We're starting fresh with a new veggie scrap bag. And we will break into our peppers. Just a reminder, the pepper hack. You take the head of your pepper. Once you slice off the top, you can twist. And out comes just about all of the pepper, heart or head or whatever this bit is called. And that goes then into our veggie scrap bag. We'll go ahead and give it a rinse just to get the rest of the seeds out and give it a nice fresh wash. All right. And while we're at it, we'll do the same with our onion. I found this little teeny tiny baby onion today. I finally have an onion that's like the appropriate size for what I need it to be this week. I got very excited about that. Small onions and veggie scrap bags, the things that make my life complete. Last thing I want to do before we get started with stress and stress management is grab a pan, and we'll go ahead and preheat the pan on the stove top to get that going. Turn that to, I'm going to turn mine actually to low just because my stovetop is so sensitive, but you know your stovetop best. Whatever's going to get a nice quick sizzle on some veggies that we slice up nice and thin, almost exactly to like the size and shape of what I unintentionally just did. Cut from the top down, makes it a lot easier. We'll go ahead and we'll get started. When I say the word stress, I feel like it's not difficult to begin thinking about what stress is and what stresses you out and what stress means to you. But I think at the end of the day, it's a common misconception. What you would be describing if you were to do that is not actually stress. It's what we call stressors. stress itself is really just like a stimulus that demands a response from us. If in something in my environment, for example, because a lot of times when we think of stress, we think of like stress in our environment, something outside of me is now impacting me, right? My body's reaction, my body's response to that thing in my environment, that is stress. We're going to slice our onions to be about the same size. I still like top down. Nice thin little slices. So if I would then were to ask you to get in the comments and start listing your stressors in 3 words or less, what is stressing you out right now? I would love to see what people come up with. So if the stressor is the stimulus and we're getting in the comments and we're talking about the things that are stressing us out, I would be willing to bet that a lot of us are going to use what we call external stressors, things in my outside environment that are impacting me and demanding a response from me. The most obvious one for me that comes to mind is stuff like work or school, things like traffic. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit further. What I'm testing for those of you who are new, is the light and frost effect. I'm gonna go ahead and get in with a little bit of butter, or I have olive oil here that needs to get used. So butter or olive oil into the pan. Just a nice little coating. We're just gonna, yeah. I'm gonna break off 2 little garlic cloves. 1, 2. I'm gonna get my garlic pressed and actually mince nice small garlicky pieces. Okay. So exciting. It already smells so good. I love a good sauteed onion. And while we wait for this to cook down a little bit, I'm gonna add a few more seasonings. We'll get some salt in here. I'll do some black pepper because I've got it. And I will do some crushed red pepper. If you've got additional seasonings to add more flavor to this, basil, anything kind of in the Italian family, it will be delicious. If you don't have those things though, it's okay. You're still gonna make a delicious meal. Just stick with it. We will build up our pantry 1 spice at a time, slowly, because spices tend to be the most expensive, which can be frustrating, and I understand and I feel that. We'll give this a stir. This one, why not? And we're just gonna let this sit, let those flavors release. Break up those onions a little more if you need to. Break up that pepper a little more if you need to. And then we'll move on to assembling our stromboli because we're basically there already. How exciting is that? I'm going to take a baking dish. Whew, loud noises. We'll do this one. I'm going to take the olive oil and just give a little dose on the bottom just to prevent sticking. And we'll move that around here. Okay. So a lot of them will be external stressors, but we can't unfortunately discredit how good we are at stressing ourselves out. It is, I think, one of the most aggravating things that we experience. We're so good at stressing ourselves out. And for example, things like the expectations that we set for ourselves, right? I might be stressed out because I've got work deadlines, or I might be stressed out because I've got a promotion that I might be eligible for. But at the end of the day, some of my personal work deadlines are self-imposed, right? I stress myself out by setting my own work deadlines. I stress myself out by thinking, well, I'm deserving of a promotion and therefore this matters to me. I need to get it, right? Or otherwise, what? I'm not worthy. I'm less good than I thought I was. Who knows, right? But it's those goals that we set for ourselves, those expectations that we hold for ourselves. I had a client one time say things like, body image for me is an internal stressor because I believe that I should have this type of weight or wear this type size clothing or look this type of way or lift this type of way or compete this type of way, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, for us all, we are just as good at stressing ourselves out as any of our external stressors are at stressing us out. These are cooking down nice. I'm going to go ahead and get started with, there's only a couple of chicken pieces left, so I'm going to finish my chicken and I'm going to lay out 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, so that we're barely touching either edge. I'm going to go in and layer on my cheese now. I'm going to give a nice healthy helping of onions and peppers on top, just like this. And for those of you who have leftover sun-dried tomatoes, definitely bring them in now. What I want to talk to us next about, when we think about stress, all too often, stress is a negative thing. My boss is stressing me out and that bothers me. The drivers on these roads stress me out and that bothers me. But stress can also be very much a good thing. There are examples of good stress. And I would love to see how many of you all, when you thought of stress, actually did think of that good thing. The promotion example, or the I should be achieving these like fitness goals and milestones that I have set for myself, right? There are very, very positive examples. And at the end of the day, I think what needs to be driven home and shared with you all is, when it comes down to it, push comes to shove, stress isn't actually good or bad. We just talked about how it's your body's response to the environment. It's not a positive or a negative thing. Stress just is. I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes from a TV show on Netflix called Sherlock that had a villain who said the following quote, and I'll put it up on the screen here. Good and bad are fairy tales. We have evolved to attach an emotional significance to what is nothing more than a survival strategy of the pack animal. Now, this sat with me for a couple of reasons. The first one being, I didn't really appreciate being called a pack animal, but what really sunk and stayed with me, and why it is something I reference all the time with my clients, is that it's kind of true. We invented good and bad. Life at its core is nothing more than cold, heartless, objective action and reaction. If I burn my hand right now, right? I touch this, I burn my hand. My reaction is reflex pull away. Everything else, the anger that I feel because I can't believe I did something so silly, the wanting to give up and not cook anymore because this is stupid and I hurt myself, everything else is just me adding my own personal interpretation, my own personal kind of flair and flavor to what has happened. We're going to put this in our ovens now. They look so pretty. We're going to put this in our ovens now for about 20-25 minutes. And while we do that, we'll finish off probably sitting down on life's sofa, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're here, and I've got my cheese for these dogs. Come here, dogs. Hi. This is Beep. Beep hasn't been on screen yet. Oh, hi, Beep. And here's my Amy. Amy, come get a book. Yeah. There she is. Hi, Amy. She's back. Good job. All right. So we finished off with stress being neutral, right? It doesn't care that you're stressed out, right? These dogs, when they wake me up in the morning and I'm just trying to sleep in on the weekends, they don't care that they're stressing me out by robbing me of sleep. Promise you, they don't. If you've got a small child, it's the same thing. When they wake you up crying because they had a nightmare in the middle of the night, they're not intentionally trying to stress you out. They just are. Work doesn't intentionally stress you out. It just places demands upon you that cause stress. But stress at the end of the day, it's not good, it's not bad. Everything else is you adding your own personal little spice blend of life to interpret and reflect upon and contextualize what is going on. It happens, and then we react. That's it. And to be clear, too, not all reactions to stress are the same, right? If I were to ask you, going back to what's stressing you out right now, and you gave me 3 or 4 words, and I then followed that up with the question of, well, how did you know you were stressed? We don't all react to stress the same way. What my body's natural response to stress is will differ from person to person. We think most obviously about fight or flight. Something happens and I throw myself into go mode. Well, what go looks like differs from person to person. Some of us have this natural ability to meet the challenge where it is. We are able to fight it. For others of us, the natural response is to avoid it. I don't like how stress feels on my body. I don't like the feeling of being stressed out. So I avoid it. Speaking personally, that's more my natural response for sure. There are actually 3 more types of responses to stress and stressful situations. The third one that we talk about is freeze. And that is kind of the most obvious is in prey animals, right? If you think about an animal being hunted, it's to be calm and be quiet and be small and unseen. People also have that freeze response. I think back to a really bad job interview I had one time where I thought I was prepared and I thought I was ready to go. And right off the rip, they start asking me questions that I had not anticipated. And my mind goes blank and my heart starts racing. The freeze response of don't move, be calm, be quiet. You'll still feel your heart pounding in your chest. But if I don't move, they won't see me. The stress won't impact me, despite the fact that it does. That's the third one. The fourth one is fawn. And when we think about fawn, it's almost like giving into whatever it is that the stress is demanding. So for example, a coworker confronts you and says things like, you need to stay late today to help me finish up this project. We've got this tight deadline and blah, blah, blah. And somehow it's your fault, even though you weren't even assigned to this project, what have you. But rather than meeting them and rising to the occasion and saying, no, rude, you just say, oh, okay, all right. And now suddenly I am accommodating you, and that makes the stress go away because it makes the conflict go away. But in terms of long-term implications, depending on what this project entails and how late I'm staying and what else is going on in my life that I'm now putting on hold because I'm giving you what you want instead of picking up my child from daycare, fawn is essentially accommodating the stressor to make the stress go away. And then last but not least, we have faint, which is that. It is passing out, it is going unconscious, and it is also a very normal response to extreme levels of stress. We see it a lot with people who have phobias, for example, where it is just such an overwhelming, negative, terrifying stimulus that our body literally just powers down. We reset, we restart when we come to. There is kind of a time and a place for all of these. Obviously, I'm not trying to have people practice fainting. We're not trying to encourage that. But we also have our defaults. There is a time to fight. There is a time to flee. There is a time to fawn. And we'll talk about those in a future video. But if my default setting is always freeze, if my default setting is always fight, it's what comes naturally to me, but it doesn't always have the best long-term outcomes compared to some of the others, just based off of the situation, based off of the circumstances. So what I want us to finish off with, I want to talk about the physiology of stress. When I ask you questions like, how do you know that you're stressed out? What is it that gives it away? I would imagine a lot of you said something along the lines of, my heart does start racing, or my breathing changes. I start having like very rapid, shallow breathing, and I have to override it, and I have to reset and go deep breaths. I might get sweaty palms, clamminess. That's another one. Some people get really flushed. Those are all physical responses to stress. I'm sure that you've listed them here below. There are so many of the different physical responses to stress we have. But at the end of the day, what it kind of boils down to is 3 or 4 big ones. We do have an increased blood pressure, an increased heart rate, and that is your body trying to pump blood to the muscles that are what we call part of the sympathetic nervous system. The muscles that kick in and are used as part of our fight or flight response. Our skeletal muscles is what we call them. If you think about muscles that you can flex, blood is getting pumped to those muscles. We feel that heart pounding. It is to help us use that energy more efficiently. And our body, most importantly, on more of like the cognitive but kind of physical side, our body releases stress hormones. The big one that we think about is cortisol. It is a readiness hormone. It helps us to react very, very efficiently. So much so that actually some of us have grown almost dependent on cortisol and the presence of cortisol to act and do what we need to do. So show of hands, give me a little thumbs up or like. Who here likes to procrastinate? This girl loves to procrastinate. And what that is me intentionally putting off a task, a conversation, a discussion, what have you, until the stress of the approaching deadline weighs enough that my brain says, okay, we're releasing cortisol. We are stressed out now. It is time to act. I put it off. And then some little voice in my head says, you can't put it off anymore. You need to do it. That's cortisol. And in those short, low doses of you need to act, it's great. It's highly effective. It is a way that we use our energy more efficiently. It allows us to focus more because it draws our attention into the thing that is stressing us out. Our senses become heightened. Our brain processes faster because of these kinds of stress hormones like cortisol. And in short, low doses, that's great. But stress isn't always a short, low dose kind of a problem. Maybe it's a coworker that I don't like, but we're stuck together. We have to work with each other. And there's no amount of like, get me away from this person or avoiding that person or what have you. Their presence is not something you can change. It's not something you can control. And therefore, day after day after day, I subject myself to this stress, and cortisol gets released throughout this day because they are there and they are stressing me out. And in those prolonged doses, it's really not a good feeling. We tend to get sick. We tend to get injured. I know for me personally, I start having those like work dreams or those stress dreams where like I'm back in college and there's some final exam that I forgot to take and I haven't attended a class the whole semester because I completely forgot about it, and now there's a final. But first I have to find the class to then take the final to then figure out what the class is. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. So go ahead and share in the comments the stress dreams that you have. Some people dream that their teeth are falling out. I think I've only had that once in my life, and I'm so grateful for that because that freaks me out. But chronic long-term stress is really not good for us. And there's actually a book. It's a book called Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers. And it talks about how our natural fight or flight evolutionary processes and needs for stress now don't really fit into our modern society. Me having an upcoming work deadline should not elicit the same response as me being hunted by a bear. But for my body, stress, oh, that's my timer. Stress is stress, it doesn't matter. And so the reaction is the same. What it feels like then for my body is, instead of running for 10, 20 minutes to evade this bear, I'm running for days. I'm running for months, depending on what this project is and what this deadline is. And it literally takes a toll on us. It is so, so bad for us to hold on to stress and harbor stress. So what I'll talk about in the next video, perhaps, is some stress management techniques, now that we've kind of laid the foundation for what stress is. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to dive deeper into stress with you all this month. I hope that you enjoy. Thank you for taking time for you today, and bon appetit. Right, we're gonna go ahead and try it. It smells really good. This is incredible. I don't know about you. I'm not always the biggest fan of cold cuts. Certainly just sandwich after sandwich after sandwich. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way to mix it up and to get rid of some of these. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you for taking care of you today. Bon appetit.